Do you have a problem where you get UTIs after sex on a regular basis? There are ways of preventing that. I know from personal experience because that was one problem that we really struggled with for a long time. And I'll tell you a little more about that in a moment. And interestingly enough, it was an extremely simple solution for me, but it took me decades to find out about it. We are the sexagenarian sages.
And we're here to bust the myths of sex and aging.
And this isn't a myth so much as you don't know what you don't know. As I said, I had a problem where I got frequent UTIs. I was getting them 6-8 times a year. And I followed all the advice. I cleaned up before sex. I cleaned up after sex. I peed right after sex. I drank lots of cranberry juice. I gave up receiving oral sex because that was one of the things I was told could increase my susceptibility to UTIs. And it reached the point where my doctor gave me a low dose of antibiotic to take after sex to prevent UTIs. Helped, didn't get rid of them completely. I still had several of them a year.
Not to mention you were loading your body with antibiotics
Yeah, I hated
on a regular basis.
I hated taking, and that's actually part of the reason I got UTIs anyhow, is because I hated taking them several times a week. So I'd say, well, I'm not going to take it this time. Sometimes it worked out okay. Other times, lo and behold, next day I wake up and I get pain on urination. So we spent decades dealing with this.
Yes.
It wasn't until I was training as a sex coach that I found one simple little thing that created the solution for me. And I implemented that solution, and I have not had a single UTI since. You want to know what that solution is? I stopped allowing penetration before I was aroused. Sounds easy. Took a little bit of work breaking my pattern about having to be ready when my partner was ready. But it made such a huge difference in my life. Now, the reason it made a difference, do you want to help me with the anatomy portion of this?
Sure. Let me bring over my nifty little pussy puppet. Here we are. Now, let's move some things up and away here. You'll notice the little flower. The flower here marks where the urethra is located. Notice it's below the clitoris.
See, I always thought it was the urethra was above it until I started training as a sex coach.
Yep. So here's the urethra. The urethra goes back up inside the body. And everybody's heard about the G-spot, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, let me pull the inside of my little puppet out. This marks what's called the G-spot. What it actually is, it's an area of tissue that overlays the urethra.
It actually wraps right around the urethra.
Yep.
And,
Here's another little.
yep, so if the pencil is the urethra, the G-spot is not just a spot, it's a whole gland that wraps right around the urethra. And I'm going to get this a little closer to the camera. So, urethra and the gland wraps around it. Now, as a woman becomes aroused, that gland becomes engorged. And when it's engorged, it's protecting the urethra. So by me allowing penetration before I was ready for it, my urethra wasn't getting protected. And here I was thinking the problem was the bacteria was getting in from the outside, and that may have been part of it. So for me, making sure that I was aroused before penetration solved my problem with getting UTIs with sex. And yes, I still clean up before and afterwards, but I'm receiving oral sex again and thoroughly enjoying it. Not worrying about, oh, if we do this, I'm gonna get a UTI tomorrow. It has been such a relief, and nobody told me about it. I talked to doctors and they just kind of shrugged their shoulders. Now, a lot of doctors aren't really trained in sexuality, so it wasn't really their fault, but I wish somebody had told me about it before. And that I didn't just stumble across it because I was training as a sex coach.
It's something that was also reinforced in my training as a sexological body worker and sexologist. Simply making sure that arousal occurs before penetration so that this area, the sponge, urethral sponge, is engorged to protect the urethra running just up above it.
Mm-hmm.
And especially as you get older, ladies, the tissues start to get thinner. It becomes easier for them to get damaged during sex. You need to have some good arousal first. Or make sure you're using some real good lube. I would use both.
Yes.
The arousal and the lube
Mhm.
to help protect that area.
Now, we talked a little bit, it was a challenge for me to not allow penetration because I was in the mindset of, I need to be ready when you're ready. What about challenges to partners? How can a partner support a woman who gets frequent UTIs?
Well, honestly, first of all, I didn't want to cause pain. I didn't want to cause her to get sick. And especially if she got a UTI, that was going to end sex for the next couple of weeks, I figured. It was back in the day before I really had some more broad ideas about what sex could actually be.
Especially since I'd get a UTI, they'd put me on antibiotics and I ended up with a yeast infection and
Yeah.
it may be a month.
Yeah. So it was certainly putting a real crimp in our sex life. That was the first thing. The second thing was that as I began to understand that she needed arousal first, it meant more time could be spent in foreplay, which was good for me as well. And by allowing for that foreplay, it would help to keep her healthy. It would be part of the whole experience of sex. And it would also give me more time to get aroused. It was great to add it in. Take time.
Yeah. And I learned how to say I'm not ready in a way that felt good to both of us. It wasn't about, oh, you're coming at me too fast. It was about, I need more time.
And that was fine for me to work with. I could take more time.
Okay. Anything further you want to say on this topic?
I guess I'd like to just close it up by saying, this is pretty easy, isn't it?
Yeah.
You don't need a lot of pills. You don't need a lot of doctor visits. Instead, you can just add to the sexual experience by increasing arousal before penetration. It's easy, it's fun, it's a great thing to do.
Yeah. And boy, is it feeling good not having to deal with UTIs.
For both of us.
Yep. If you want more information, get in touch. Our contact information is down below. And please, please share this information. Help it get out there.
Subscribe.
You like doing that. Thank you for watching.